What's the best real-life example you've witnessed of someone destroying their own happiness? Story 1. My parents separated earlier this year. It was 100% my dad's fault due to being an abusive textbook narcissist. Mom put their house up for sale, and he had 2 months to sort out his move. He claimed to have nothing, no support, and nowhere to go. My husband and I took pity on him, and despite having a newborn and both working, helped him pack, sell off the extra furniture to get him some cash, and I found him a secure place to buy in his budget. He turned around and said he didn't want to move into the type of place I found, an over-50s village, he's 73, because he wouldn't be able to take chicks back there to smash. He then refused to leave the property and said the cops would have to shoot him to get him out of the house. When I put pressure on him because otherwise the sale would have fallen over and they would have been sued, he threatened self-unaliving, which he does absolutely every time something isn't going his way, and to burn the house down repeatedly in front of my 7-year-old kid. Eventually, he does comply, and we move him into the granny flat of a woman he met playing pokies, slot machines for you U.S. types, and who is apparently a millionaire from a famous family. I call hogwash, but he clearly thinks he's found someone new to mooch off. They've been at the pokies every day for months now. His money won't last long at this rate. Then I found out that through all this, all the stress and hogwash he put me through when I should have been in a happy new baby cocoon, he actually had an offer from a longtime friend to move in with him and his wife, and they had a whole team of people willing to help him with his move. Considering that he ghosted them after they made that offer, though, they've since decided to discontinue the friendship since he's shown he didn't value it or them. Guess what? My husband and I are also done with him. I was the last kid that spoke to him. So he went from being married with a family to living in insecure housing, hurtling towards poverty and homelessness, having burned every bridge he had. All because he's too narcissistic to accept that he is less than perfect and that he is ultimately responsible for his own life. That rant felt good. Edited to define pokies, which is Australian slang for slot machines from poker machines. Oh, wow. It sounds like this person is used to living the life he wants, but everything is changing around him and he doesn't know how to change or even want to change, and thinking people will just lay down and just let him do whatever he wants, and he's about to discover that's not the case. That's going to be scary. Story 2. My ex is weirdly a reverse of this. Oh, God, we got this kind of a story. Too long didn't read? We were unhappy together. We split when he cheated. Everyone involved seemed much happier for a while, but his life has gone downhill since. Together, we were miserable. There was nothing good about that relationship. He ended up cheating, among other smeggy behaviors, and we split. For a while, it seemed like everybody was better off. He seemed happy to be with his affair partner. I was just thriving, being single. The kids were much happier because it turns out a home with 2 deeply unhappy parents is terrible for children. It was all looking up. He and I were civil and focused on co-parenting. About a year after the split, things seemed to just start spiraling for him. He lost his job in a niche field where you really had to be the best of the best to get sustainable work, and he was simply never the best of the best. He was getting by on piecemeal contracts and simply won't retrain into another more stable field, or even just supplement his income with something like bartending or food service or anything. His girlfriend had some kind of injury needing repeated surgeries that's limited her ability to work, so he's the breadwinner on a low and sporadic income. He started to become increasingly inconsistent with the kids and would disappear from their lives or on and off, so they, being children, turned more and more to me for stability. His views became increasingly alt-right and anti-science, which, in my opinion, just makes you an angry, disconnected person who thinks society is persecuting you. And also, it turns out, I had all the financial sense in the relationship, and did all his life admin. And he doesn't know how to do a lot of basic smeg like refinance loans or do taxes. So there's been this long list of totally avoidable financial near disasters occurring because he didn't do X, which would have prevented Y. Or comes to ask me for money because he's taken out payday loans and, surprise, the interest is brutal. I learned my lesson there. I don't help him with money now. Meanwhile, I'm doing great. My kids are doing great. They like spending time with him, but don't really see him as a person to turn to for support or comfort. I look back on that first year and he seemed happy, and I'm at a bit of a loss for how it's all gone to smeg for him in the years since. I'm glad it's worked out for her, and I'm glad the kids seem very stable, but man, it just sounds like this is like a younger version of the previous story. It just seems like he's hurtling towards some kind of very bridge-burned future of everything. Story 3. My sister was offered an incredible well-paying job doing something she's great at. She decided it would be too easy and opted for a far more challenging job in a far less appealing setting, with a butthole of a boss she was hoping to impress. She's fracking miserable now. I honestly don't get why she does this sort of smeg to herself. I almost understand where she's coming from, and it's not a healthy place. When I was in high school, I would gravitate towards people who weren't particularly impressed with me and try to change their minds. I don't know why I did it. I rationalized it to myself like their lack of faith in me will lead to me working all the harder and getting all the better. But it just led to a miserable adolescence. Left that behind in college, though. This is literally the same concept as the guy's cousin above, who can't accept men who like her, but chase after those who don't. If you don't like me, I'll prove to you why you should mentality. You said it was sad to see, but this is the same scenario minus the romantic relationship aspect. Literally the same. You're trying to gravitate towards people who weren't impressed with you and trying to change their minds. Never mind the people who can see your worth already without you having to prove anything. Applicable to many situations. Almost like if you're able to change their minds, you somehow earned it. Like you have to earn it for it to be justified or mean anything for it to be real. Just pointing that out to you. My mom was like that. When I was younger, she worked part-time at Target as a cashier and was amazing at selling their credit cards and service plans. So good that a guy from Merrill Lynch who went through her line a couple of times offered her a job. She thought it sounded fake and never called him, despite my encouragement because this could have gotten her out of poverty and she's always been great at sales, but still continued trying to become her own boss, doing MLMs and weird online marketing schemes. It drives me insane with how many good salesmen there are in retail who shy away from sales because the commission isn't secure. It's never too late for her. Sales departments are ghost towns due to staffing shortages, and companies will take anyone who can hold a conversation without crying from social anxiety. I do respect people who are good at sales. I've never been good at it myself, even when I have to sell myself, quote unquote, to be able to get jobs for different things. And it's amazing. Have you ever found someone that's had this kind of a mentality that they have to feel like they earn respect or money from a harder opportunity than one that was well suited for them? Let me know. Story 4. I have a family member who inherited about $500,000 in cash and assets when his mother passed. He had a decent job at the time. This inheritance meant that he started taking longer vacations and stopped consistently working. He bought a sports car and paid off the 2 pre-built condos that his mother had put down payments on, but sold one immediately at a loss and then rented the other out for a while until his original tenants moved out, then let it sit vacant for over a year and sold it at a loss. He loaned money to his half-sister to pay for tuition at a job that would never allow her to repay him. He bought every new and interesting piece of electronics. The electronics eventually caught up with him. He went on holiday to the USA, and on his way back across the border, the guards wanted to search his laptop, which led to the discovery of child porn. He was also trying to groom his niece, daughter of the half-sister. There wasn't much money left from the estate at that point. He was arrested and only managed to stay out of jail on a technicality that a very expensive lawyer found. He paid mid-$50,000 for his defense. The 2 or 3 years that the criminal defense was going on, he didn't work at all. Just dipped out on his employer, who would have continued employing him. He sold the sports car at a loss. Sold his last remaining property, the condo, at a loss. Sold a bunch of his expensive toys at a loss. Ended up penniless. Actually, probably bankrupt, but not in jail. Now, his life consists of living in a small rented bedroom and working as a local trucker. He didn't just destroy his life. He nuked it from orbit and then salted the ground. He's currently in his late 40s and will probably never be able to retire. Most of the family won't speak to him at all. Story 5. A good friend I worked with for years was married to a great dude. Super nice, and everyone loved him. Just a great guy all around. They had a couple middle school-aged kids, too. I think she was going through a midlife crisis type thing, but anywho, she reconnected with her old high school boyfriend on Facebook, and they started having an affair. She ended up telling her husband about it and left him for the other guy. Her husband was great about it, wanted her to be happy, great at co-parenting, and didn't want to make anything harder on the kids, etc. The old high school boyfriend was toxic as hell. I met him a few times, and he was an absolute tool. They fought constantly. Every other week, they were breaking up, kicking each other out of her condo, or he'd just go missing for days at a time, and she'd be a wreck wondering where he was, which was usually a couple hours away at a beach on an illicit substance bender with his friends. He's in his late 40s, by the way. She said she got bored with her life with her husband and wasn't attracted to him anymore. But I think she just went off the deep end and wanted something that wasn't there anymore. The feeling of excitement of young puppy love. But that's not what she got. I think some people just need drama in their life. I felt like she threw away a happy life just because she missed the drama. Oh, isn't that some horrible truth? I don't know what's in these folks' heads or if they believe too much in the movies or books for their own sake. Story 6. My ex-neighbor. Nice guy. Managed a hot music venue in L.A. Partied a fair bit. One day, he didn't have enough cash on him for coke, so he begged his dealer to sell him hard rock instead. Dealer told him it was a bad idea, but he would sell it to him because that's what dealers do. Guy insisted. I know this because the dealer knocked on my door and told me to watch out for him because he was making some bad decisions. A week later, I noticed my neighbor's normally full of music apartment was deadly quiet. Went up there and found him passed out in literally a foot of garbage. Chip bags, takeout wrappers, cardboard boxes. It was like he carried all of our trash out of the dumpster behind the building and dumped it on his floor. Then his boss, who was awesome, paid to send my neighbor to rehab and guaranteed his job would be waiting for him when he got back. Neighbor broke out of rehab 2 days in. A month later, I found out he had gone back to his home, moved in with his parents, the guy was in his late 30s, and then OD'd on their floor. Don't crack, kids. You know you fracked up when a literal substance dealer thinks you're making bad decisions. Yet the guy whose literal job is to get him these mind-altering substances is saying, maybe you want to back off, you don't want to do that. That's red flag, red flag. How do you not see that as a big, giant red flag staring you right in the face? It's really hard for me to wrap my head around. I'm sure some of you have different opinions and different experiences, though. Let me know. Story 7. I knew a guy who gambled away $8 million his grandfather left him. He inherited it at 21. It was gone by 23. He's actually an incredibly good guy, too. That's what gets me. Man, what's even the point of gambling at that point? $8 million is enough to do whatever the hell you want, assuming you don't do anything completely ridiculous. But think of how much more you could do with 16 million. If you're going to give somebody that big of an inheritance, then you should really put some safeguards. Yeah, it's pretty reckless to give someone young that much money without safeguards. Even if they do the smart thing, they still lack the social skills and life experience not to be preyed upon. I never thought I'd feel bad for a 23-year-old former multimillionaire who blew through his inheritance too fast, but that poor kid is going to have a tough road ahead with a crippling addiction. I hope he's getting some help. Story 8. My ex-friend Tom. Over 10 years ago when we were teenagers, he once said to me, "I'm going to try Walter White crystals tonight," whilst we were at a bar. Australian. I literally knew nothing about illicit substances at the time, especially Walter White crystals. I just knew it wasn't good. He invited me to join him, but I said no, because I had a gut feeling it wouldn't end well for me. Since that day, he went in and out of prison, lost all of his friends, including me, and completely changed as a person. Whilst walking with my wife and daughter a few months back, I saw him walking his dog. He had obviously cleaned himself up, but it was like two strangers walking past each other. I took one silver lining out of this. It made me learn a lot about illicit substances altogether, and it showed me a different life I could have led if I said yes all those years ago. Always say no to Walter White crystals. It will ruin your life and take everything. Edit. I forgot to add. Tom had it all. A living girlfriend, a great job, etc. He had a living girlfriend? Smeg, doing better than half the people I know.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 9. Oh man, my ex-girlfriend from high school. Valedictorian of our class, super smart, came from an awesome family. I'm still friends with her sister and mom. Totally just dropped out of college, moved to Baltimore, and smoked hard rock for 15 years. Has a bunch of kids, is totally unintelligible to talk to. It's bananas. What is it about Baltimore? I had a friend get accepted into Johns Hopkins University, and he spent his time doing hard rock and horse and dropped out. Johns Hopkins is in a bad part of town, and I say this as someone who went to grad school on the south side of Chicago. I met a woman who did her PhD at Johns Hopkins, and her car got damaged because gangbangers were rolling boulders at each other. I'm sorry, but is no one going to acknowledge rolling boulders at each other? That's the most absurd ooga booga caveman smeg I've ever heard, and it's making for an absurd mental image. Story 10. My dad threw out a 15-year marriage with a woman he adored because he got drunk and smashed a random coworker. He's utterly miserable now. Did he confess, or was he caught? And was it definitely a one-time thing? Sorry, hope this isn't unsettling. Not upsetting. Your question. The situation obviously is. And he confessed. It was definitely a one-time thing. Oddly enough, the woman was a lesbian. They had no interest in each other. Still destroyed our family, though. My mom is miserable but too proud to take him back. If my spouse slept with someone else, there's nothing that could get me to continue a relationship with them, sadly. Just couldn't do it. I don't think I could either, and I wouldn't blame anyone for walking away in that situation. I wouldn't blame anyone for staying if they wanted to do the work, but I think I'd be done. Story 11. Friend who got married because he didn't want to break it off and thought he would just be better off. He's expiring a slow unaliving. Same thing happened to my brother. He didn't want to hurt her feelings. There's being considerate, and then there's insanity. Something similar happened to my uncle. He got engaged. As time went on, he realized their temperaments really didn't match. She would go off at the drop of a hat when facing any modicum of stress. He tried to call the wedding off, but his parents convinced him not to. Basically told him he would shame the entire family if he did. They got married, had a baby, and got divorced 5 years later. Her temper just got worse over time. My uncle actually checked himself into a mental health facility for a few weeks after the divorce. The only good thing to come from the marriage is his son, who he has full custody of because his ex doesn't want to be weighed down with a kid right now. Story 12. Young guy at work. He's in his early to mid-20s, is married with 2 young kids and a third on the way. This new girl at work has been after him so hard. He was seriously tempted and conflicted. We all tried to talk him out of it. Did he really want to throw away his family life for this? Do you really think this new girl is going to stick around once all the drama starts when you guys get caught? He told us all one day that he finally told the new girl to leave him alone. He was happy with his wife, and she didn't stand a chance. 3 weeks later, he was sleeping in his car because he went for the new girl after all, got caught, kicked out, and served with divorce papers. And the new girl ditched him once he got depressed over it. What an idiot. Only rich and famous guys can cheat without consequences. Story 13. I have an insecure cousin who would regularly reject guys who were into her and chase guys who weren't interested. The more distant and emotionally unavailable the guy was, the harder she'd try to win him over. The best real-life example of, I don't want to be a part of any club that would have me as a member I've ever seen. I have multiple friends like this. None of them ended up in happy relationships. Counselor here. Almost always a result of inattentive or emotionally neglectful parenting. I can be like this. I'm working on it. It's fully an attachment issue. I feel sorry for her and everyone who's like this. It's usually a parenting problem and stems from early childhood. So there's nothing anyone can really do to have turned out differently. All you can do is work on it when the issue becomes apparent in your 20s, and the work is long and difficult. Story 14. I know a guy who's now in his 50s or 60s who got bored with his wife and kids, cheated on her, and divorced her. His wife, who had always supported him because he just couldn't hold the job down, started a business and became a multimillionaire. She also got remarried to this amazing guy who is a major step up from the husband in every aspect. The guy then married this mail-order bride from Indonesia. As soon as the 3 years she had to stay with him to get permanent residency were over, she left him and married his richer cousin. I sometimes get invited to family events and see him there by himself, broke, and with none of his kids or family members wanting to talk to him. Why does he still go to family events if nobody there will talk to him? Loneliness? Story 15. Knew a guy that worked for a small publicly traded company. A penny stock. It became a meme stock around the GameStop era. His holdings went from about $50,000 to $7 million in a few weeks. He knew the valuations were complete hogwash, but refused to sell. He said $10 million was his frack you money number, and only when it hit that he would sell. I begged him to sell because it was obvious it was a short-term phenomena and he had made a lot of bad bets in his life. The company lost about 99% of its value from its high. He did get out about $500,000. Taxes got about 30% of it. But watch almost all of it evaporate. He's absolutely miserable at his new job. He could have retired at a young age. Still can't believe he did it, like throwing away a lottery ticket. Story 16. I had a friend in college who had a tendency to act before thinking, but was generally fun and well-meaning. After I had graduated, my friend apparently got coerced by a woman he was trying to sleep with to try horse just once. As I heard it, he refused initially, then caved because he felt pressured. My friend overdosed and passed away. Just like that. One bad decision ended his life. R.I.P., Mike. When you really hate someone, you offer them horse. Story 17. This entire thread is pretty much affairs and addictions, and losing large inheritances. That, and a depressing number of girls, at least it seems like it's mainly girls, who are so insecure and naive they give up great guys to pursue and help truly smeggy guys. Possibly because they don't think they deserve love or happiness. Who knows? Story 18. A friend of mine quit a job that paid 6 figures a year because he didn't trust his girlfriend to not cheat on him while he's at work. The kicker here being that she was a paid spicy companion when they met. He's a great guy, but a complete idiot when it comes to women. Roxanne!
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.